All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We're running a couple minutes behind here, just letting everybody join up. We'll go ahead and get started, and just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Let's see here. If you can chat me, if you can't hear me, let me know. All right, looks like Rick's coming in here. I'm going to just test some audio real quick. All right. All right, Rick, can you hear me over there? Just making sure the audio is coming through before we get started. All right, good deal. Let's get started. So welcome everyone to another edition of our webinar series. We've got on the plate today is backups. So this is our technology that IntelliPoint uses to run backups. And before we get started, just again want to thank you for all of your patience again through the COVID and all of the different changes that I'm sure all the companies have endured so far. We appreciate all your understanding and your patience with everything. So, and also we have been running through our COVID return to work series. I'm sure everyone has received a phone call or some kind of communication on that. We've developed a form to kind of help everybody get a checklist of, as we start to open back up, what things do we need to be worried about, or some things just to be thinking about as we start that process back up. So if you would like some more information on that, or if you did not get any communication on that and you'd like to have that spreadsheet, that checklist that we developed, send an email to support@intellipoint.net and we'll get that sent over to you. So going through the, all right, so this is the agenda for today. We're gonna have an overview of the products that we offer. We're gonna actually do an onboarding overview, kind of what to do and what to see as we start to develop a plan for you. We're gonna do a live demo. To save time, I have already spun up a server. Normally the server spin up takes between 5 and 10 minutes or so, but to keep everybody from waiting that long, I went ahead and spun that server up, and it is sitting back there waiting to show you a demo of it. And then obviously how you can sign up and how you can reach out to us. So housekeeping, we have the chat down. Most of you guys have already been on most of our webinars, so you kind of get how to work with us. If you've got some questions or anything like that, we'll use the chat features to move forward. Everyone is muted right now. During the last part of the presentation, I'll unmute everyone. If you have any questions or would like to get some further information, always email us at support@intellipoint.net. All right, so here's the getting right into the mix. Here's an overview of the product that we offer. It is a full system, hourly, full image-based backups. So the system by default will back up your systems every single hour. These are then replicated to our 2 data centers. They're automatically spun up within the software technology. They spin up nightly, and then we can look at a report that shows the spin up of those servers. We'll show you a demo of that here in just a moment. Also, IntelliPoint has a recurring ticket. If you've got a continuity care agreement with us, we basically, every month we schedule a technician. They manually back up those servers or manually spin those servers up on the backup platform, test that logins are working. We look and see if data is intact, drive mappings are correct, in case you do call us in the event of needing to have that server available for a disaster recovery mode. So we don't trust the reports, we do it ourselves. Unfortunately, we do that monthly. So and then the ticketing, it actually is integrated into our ticketing system. So it's a full integration. So if backups are failing, if the disk usage is getting filled up, any of the maintenance items are fully integrated with our ticketing system, which makes it nice because we're not managing 2 different systems. We basically rely on those ticketing or those alerts to be generated, and it works quite well. As the systems are fixed, it will rearm the alerts or disarm the alerts. So it's really nice. We've got a standard that we use for hardware. It's Dell Refurb servers. We found that that's a good mix. They're pretty beefy servers. We take the amount of RAM that you've got and the amount of used hard drive space, and then we will quote out the BDR that fits the needs of your company. We do have a couple of customers that they actually use multiple BDRs on site, because in the event that we would have to spin those guys back up, we want to make sure they're available. So here's an example of alerts. This is kind of a snippet of the page that we look at. So we actually look through this on every Monday morning. Dylan actually is the one that does this for us. So he has a recurring ticket every Monday morning to go through this. And even though the alert system is built into our ticketing system, I still want eyeballs on it to see, let's look at some of the different things in this list. So we have agent status on the left-hand side. We're going to move left to right. It'll tell us our versions. We always want to make sure that those versions are correct, because that means we're using the latest software that our company has given us. You have the latest backup time. We always want to make sure that that backup time matches, what the date is. As far as replication, so that's our check to make sure that the data or the server is actually being replicated to our data centers. We've got another part of the boot check. We'll see that screen in just a moment. Backup statistics, you can see that those statistics are, the completed, failed, and missed. And we actually send this report to you guys monthly as well, to our main point of contacts, so that you can kind of check our work to make sure that things are going good. Of course, you've got the volumes that are being backed up, and then you've got the retention periods. So we may adjust these retention periods based on need or growth. As you start to get larger, or your data starts to get larger, we'll drop that down. We can do anything as far as that matters. So appliance is how long it's stored on the actual appliance, and then the vault is your replicated area. So that's where they're sitting in a data center somewhere, and that's how long that they'll be kept there. And then you've got disk used, the appliance used, and then the vault used. So we always review this. We've got a checklist that Dylan follows every Monday morning to make sure that these numbers are in sync with each other. And this is a really useful document, because we have found where maybe someone did a test restore, and maybe they left that replication running, or the virtualization running. So that's our checks and balances to go through and clean our stuff up if maybe perchance somebody left one running, because that does degrade the performance of the backup server. So this is kind of just to keep everything running real smooth. Here's the backup, or here's the example of the boot report. And as you can see, these are just screens on the right-hand side. These are screens of the actual servers. So this will show us that, and notice it's got 319, 218. So those are in the morning. And actually the top is a workstation. So we can back up not just servers, but workstations as well. Same functionality. We can replicate those. If you've got a high important computer, let's say it's a production server or a system, workstation that you're using, and you want to make sure that that guy's ready to go, we can have it back up and ready to go. I didn't go into detail about the restorability of these, but we do have the ability to restore from a BMR, which is a bare metal restore. So we can, if there's a CD that you boot up to, you tap into the BDR, and then you can restore it back to that original workstation. We have the ability to take that workstation and virtualize it onto a server. And that's kind of how we test the restore side of things. So we've got a lot of options for restorability, but that's an example of the boot screen. So we can see that they actually are booting up. And sometimes we'll find that drivers have changed, or maybe there's something wrong. So we'll reach out to support and get that fixed. But we kind of trust this report. All right, so here's a storage trend report, and this is kind of fun to watch. This is something we look at to see, is your BDR, are you outgrowing your BDR? Or is it kind of run along where we thought it should be with size growth? If we start to see that growth get up above a certain number, we'll start contacting you, say, hey, we either need to maybe upgrade the drives that are in your BDR, or maybe we just need to put another BDR because your BDR is overloaded now. So we want to make things are the performance is good. So there's your storage trend. So onboarding steps. So there's just a few things we need to give you a quote. Doesn't cost anything to get a quote. I've got a form that I send out. Basically, we need the server name and function. And the function is for us, basically, if it's a domain controller or if it's an application server or a SQL server, well, we know that, we know that those might take a little bit longer to spin up. Maybe they don't take as long. So we base that cost off of that. Also, what are the special needs? So what's your RAM? What's your CPU? What's the operating system? If it's a 2003 box, well, we're probably going to tell you we might need to do a project to get that guy up on a newer operating system, and then we'll be able to assist you on your backup and disaster recovery needs. Your expected RPO and RTO. So we'll go into that a little bit later on what that is. And then what's your disk space used versus free? So the reason that matters is because we want to make sure that we spec the BDR to allow enough space for growth, in the fact that, let's say you've got a terabyte drive server, but you're only using 100 gig. Well, you've got 900 gig of growth. That's not going to do you any good if we spec the server at 100 gig, right? So we want to make sure that our BDRs are sized accordingly, and that's what will help us with that. So we have a form, like I said, it's just an Excel spreadsheet. You fill out the sheet. It fills in all the data for us. We take that and plug that into our numbers, and we can give you a quote pretty quickly. It doesn't take very long to get a turnaround on that. So what's RTO and RPO, you might ask? Well, so this is to gauge us how fast do we need to be, right? So an RPO is your recovery point objective. And that's basically the interval of time that might pass during a disruption before the quantity of data lost during that period exceeds the business continuity, your BCP maximum allowable threshold or tolerance. RTO is the duration of time and service level within which a business process must be restored after a disaster in order to avoid unacceptable consequences. So this lets us gauge the resources on the server to make sure that, okay, first, your RPO, so how often do you need to back up for the data to be recovered? And then RTO is how fast does it need to be recovered once you put in a ticket and say this needs to be back up and running. So that lets us gauge, are we going to do hourly backups, or are we going to do 30-minute backups? I normally don't recommend 30-minute backups. Hour is going to be our base. But for some servers, like a domain controller that is literally just serving domain functions and no changes really are being made, we might do a once-a-day backup on that, as long as it fits your RPO and RTO times. And that's something we'll work out with you to make sure that we're satisfying that need for your company. But that kind of gives you a little bit of information on what data we're trying to get from that form. Okay, so, I like pictures. I'm sure everybody likes pictures. So this is kind of an easy way to know what RPO and RTO is. So this is the RPO, this is the RTO. So where is the last point of data that you need? That's your RPO. And how long is it going to take to recover it? That's your RTO. So we want to make sure that there's a happy medium there, because you may say, well, I can't be down no more longer than 5 minutes. Well, that's going to be a whole lot different picture than you say, I can't be down longer than 4 hours. So we want to be able to gauge that with you and set a reasonable expectation that fits your budget. All right, so it's demo time, and you're going to have to bear with me for a minute because I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to go over to a server that I'm already connected to and has already logged me out. So this is kind of a fun little practice. Let me share my screen again. So this is a domain controller within our environment that I'm connecting to. And let's see here. Rick, can you confirm that you're seeing that server for me? Just want to make sure that my screen's coming through clearly. You want to chat me, Rick, and let me know? Okay. He is not seeing it, he said. Okay, give me a second here. Let me try to share it one more time. Okay, here we go. So he says he's seeing it. Hopefully everybody else is seeing it. So I'm going to move on. So this is a server that we have within our environment, and I'm going to log into it, and you'll see this is just a little extra for the webinar today. which might be a future webinar actually. This is our Duo product. As you can see, I'm logging in. This is our two-factor authentication product that we use. It's called Duo. And I have my phone on airplane mode, which is going to block this from coming through. But this is basically a security software that we use to verify we are who we are when we log into things. Some companies that we manage have it, some don't. If you're interested in getting more information on this product, let me know. I am waiting for my, there we go. So I just answered it on my phone, and now it's letting me log in. As you'll see, I'm already logged in to our BDR. This is the IntelliPoint one. So you can see that we have a good mix, and I'll just kind of go through it real quick. DB, that's Dennis's desktop here in the office. You can see that we are backing his desktop up as well as some other servers in our environment. So we have multiple BDRs and multiple vaults as well. So, and you can see from this screen some quickie information, schedule. So we can do custom schedules. We can do every hour for 24 hours. Or if you say, you know, I'm not really in production during off hours and I really don't want my servers, disks spinning and all of that hardware running, you know, through the off hours, let's just do it during business hours. Well, you can see that's what we do. So we're just backing these guys up during your so-called business hours. A quick glance here shows me that a green light means that it is virtualized, and that is the server I will be showing you today. It's also being replicated. So that's this little blue icon right here. So it's a nice little thing. This is really something that the customers never see. I can set you up an account and you can manage this yourself if you would like. A lot of people just say, hey, look, we're paying you for it. Just manage it and make sure that it's working and give us some reports. And that's what we do. So I'm not going to go through all of this because, like I said, this is not something the customers would normally see. So we can, if you're more interested in seeing the back end of this, we can do a one-on-one and kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it. But for time's sakes, we'll just move on from that. So, but I do want to show you how we spin it up. So if we look in here under actions, and you can see it gives us some details. You can see the boot VM screenshot is there. It's kind of a nice little, and you'd have to click on it to bring it up. You can see basic retention policies are in place. Something to note, they have changed their default retention policies to a grandfather, father-son type thing, where you're stored weeklies, daily, weekly, monthlies, and then I think bi-yearlies. So that's basically the same space, and I kind of like that idea. It's an old way of thinking about it, and it works. So you can see that the snapshots here, these are all the snapshots, and you can see that they are hourly snapshots. You can dig into the job section of this and actually see how long those jobs are running. So I think this server takes, there's probably about 10 minutes or so to back up every hour. It's pretty quick hit. So, but also in here, this is where you can, and I didn't do this in the original documentation for the PowerPoint presentation, but you can actually mount a drive up. And so you can mount a drive and then pull off individual files and folders. If you don't want to spin the whole server up and go through that whole process, and you just want to restore a couple of files, right there's where you do it. So you basically mount a drive up, and then you can pull off, you know, different files and folders that you need. And then you can export it. So you can export like a VHD to, you know, put back in your virtual environment, or you can export different file formats. There's all kinds of different file formats. Start iSCSI is a fun little thing that we don't use very often, but if you are in a disaster recovery, and let's say you've got a server and you've got a C and a D drive. The D drive is your data drive. The server's booting up perfectly fine, but that D drive, there's something wrong with it. Well, instead of restoring that whole drive during production hours, we can actually start an iSCSI connection to that server from this server, and your live server's still running, and we can actually connect into a shared drive from this server. Once you're out of production hours, we can then shut that iSCSI share down and then restore that drive back to normal during off production hours. So that's a really nice feature. Fortunately, again, we've not had to use that too often, but it is a nice feature of the system. So let's jump right into the for the virtualization of it. So this is basically the steps that our techs would take monthly. Again, they've got a checklist that they run through. So they're going to click in here, they're going to go to Start VM. And we have some forms that there's some documentation that I like to keep on what servers are getting spun up and when and all that. But we do Start VM. What that'll do is that launches a different window, a no VNC window, if you will. Notice how it's kind of running within this window. So you can see that it looks very familiar. Like I said, this takes roughly 5 to 10 minutes, depending on hardware, depending on data. They're all about the same. So we hit the send control delete. You can see that this is a server now. This is asking for my logins. So let me go up here. It looks like we got some chats here. Let me just check my chat here. Okay, and I will get to those chats in just a moment. So so anyway, this is the virtualized environment. This is running within this server. So it's a physical server that we purchase. It's part of the continuity care agreement that you sign with us. We own it, we maintain it, we manage it. But this instance of this domain controller, our ITDC002, is now running in a virtualized instance on that hardware while your hardware, your production hardware, is either being repaired, replaced, fixed, whatever needs to be done. You're up and running on this BDR until you tell us that everything's good back in your production environment. I have it booted up in a test environment, but if I booted it up into live, it actually gives it an IP address on your network, and you're back up and running. Your systems never knew that this is a new server. There are a couple of caveats to this. Something that we don't run into on any of the things that we purchase in licensing for Microsoft. So if you purchased your licensing with your hardware, that's called OEM, original equipment manufacturer, they have some limitations on virtualization abilities. So I always recommend, if you're purchasing server hardware, purchase your licensing for the servers with a volume license agreement. That way you have the mobility rights with it, or virtualization rights. Because when you boot this server back up, and let's say your old hardware caught on fire, there's no replacing that old hardware, and you've got to get a new, let's say you're getting a new Hyper-V server, and for everybody that's on the call, I won't go into detail what that is, but it's basically a virtualization platform. So we can drop this image back down to your Hyper-V server. You basically shut it down, transfer the VHD, and boot it back up, and that's how simple it is. And your users never knew anything happened. But this is a live server, so you can see I can click in it, and this is what we would normally do. We would go in here, we would go into these drives, we would look at it, we would make sure the data is intact, we can drill into it, and that things just work. Now, it does get a little complicated. Let's talk about GP. To be able to really test GP out in an environment, you would need a workstation spun up, but we will test SQL functionality and things like that just to make sure that it is working. And I'll tell you, it's pretty solid. I mean, they just work, and that's why we test it. So, because I don't trust reports. So, but you can see this is our server. This is a live server. And again, when we're done, you basically just shut it down, and that's part of our backup and test restore procedures. So, all right. So, John, I'm going to answer your question. Is the backup report available upon request? Absolutely. We can. So we store those out in our server. So we can send those. We usually send them to our primary point of contact, but we can take those reports and send them on to whoever at any time. And if I know we have a few that maybe do some year-end processing, or they do something that's kind of going to make a bunch of changes on their network, and they just want to say, I want to make sure that our backups are good before we start these processes. That's not something we're going to squabble about. We'll go in and do a manual backup, and we'll even do a test restore just to make sure that everything's good upon request. So we don't have that happen very much, but we will do that at your request. All right, it looks like Rick actually answered you, so I'm sorry about that. I didn't read the next thing there. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and that is really the demo of our appliance system. Like I said, there's a lot of different things we can go into, but it's not really anything you care about. In the end, you just care about, is it going to work, and am I going to be back up and running at the end of the day, at the end of a disaster. We also help you develop a a BCP plan, a continuity plan for your environment. This is kind of above and beyond the data recovery. It's more of, I've got a templated thing that we walk you through, and it helps us gauge, in the event of, let's say, the building burning down, who is going to deal with the media? Who's going to deal with maybe your clients? Kind of designating those people, and then who's going to deal with the IT provider? Because in time of chaos, you want something you can go back and look at and follow instead of trying to reinvent that wheel at the time of chaos. So, something we try to work you through as well. So, unrelated to this type of system, we have another backup product that I'll talk about for just briefly, and that is your Office 365 backups. So as you know, Office 365 by default only retains 15 days worth of email archives, unless you do some special setup and then pay for it. So we don't trust that 15 days is enough. So we bolt a backup product onto it, and you can see that product is called CloudFinder. So CloudFinder actually backs up your mailbox, it backs up your OneDrive folders, and your SharePoint databases. So if you're using SharePoint, it will kick right in, and we can restore those files right at a granular level. A lot of times, one of our procedures when we terminate users or when users leave your business, we'll use CloudFinder in conjunction with Office 365 to create a snapshot or a point-in-time backup of their files for reference. And that is in our forms. If you request that we do that, then we'll basically do that for you. But this is the product, pretty simple, cut and dry. It's just a dashboard, and of course it logged me out. Let me get logged back in here. Let me get logged in here. So here we go. So just a kind of quick look at what all is going on. This is just for IntelliPoint. This is not all of our customers by any means. You can see that there's 67,000 documents that we've backed up, 18,000 contacts. Events is obviously calendars. We have 322,000 items of that. And then we have a little over almost 4 million emails that are backed up within this product. So this is an unlimited backup, which is nice. It's a one set fee per user per month. This is something that we hook right into your Office 365. It is capable of doing Gmail and some other platforms, but we mostly focus on Office 365. So this is why I use this as as an example. So you can see the backups. Here's our restored jobs if we had any, and then that's how you export. You can export those into the PST files, and then let's say you needed a copy of somebody's email system. You basically do a restore job and then export that as a PST, and then attach it into your Outlook so you can look through all of their emails. In the event you need to pull out some archive stuff. Here's your search. So search actually lets you, there's different drop downs here, filtering that you can do based on, let's see here. So if you're looking just for a document or an email, event or contact, and then you can do that by user, and then you can filter out some additional data to help you kind of dive into something. Maybe you deleted something, and maybe it was in your inbox. So we'll look at just inbox items, and then you give us something to search by, name, what was the attachment name, something like that, and then we can restore it right from this system. Work pretty slick. Here's some reports that you can get. I don't know that we provide the CloudFinder reports on a monthly basis. Dylan would have to answer that question. I'm not sure if we do, but you can see that these reports are available to run and then be provided. And then your basic settings here. Like I said, this product is pretty cut and dry, not much to go over on this. So, and we can do a backup digest emails, which is kind of nice. So, and that's just a snapshot of, hey, is everything getting backed up or what's happening with it? So other than that, I think that's pretty much everything I have on both of our backup products. If you're interested in seeing anything further as far as a demo or maybe some more information or especially some pricing for CloudFinder, send an email to support@intellipoint.net. Give us the number of users because that's how we price it. So we price it based on the number of users. And then there's some special permissions and some setup that you have to do for that account to link in, as you would expect, to back up all of that data in that system. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen because that is it of the demo. And let me go back to my presentation. So give me just a minute. All right. So Rick, can you once again confirm with me that you can see the demo time? Might take a minute to share out there with you. Okay, thank you. All right, so let's move on here. Find my controls. All right, so obviously the next question is, how do I get a quote? And remember, it doesn't cost anything to get a quote. So we would be more than happy to look into your systems and have a good conversation with you regarding maybe some of the needs that you've got. What we would do is, though, you contact our sales, mainly Dennis, or send us an email at support@intellipoint.net. I'll send out you the BDR survey forms, as I showed previously, and you basically fill that out. I put all the numbers in our system, and then we move on. So if there's anything that you need from us, I see that we've got some people on the line here. Some customers, full customers, some we just do some GP work for. So, you know, either way, this is how you get in touch with us. Support@intellipoint.net comes into our ticketing system, and I'll get that scheduled for someone to give you a call back momentarily. So let's see here. What's next? I'm going to unmute everyone if we have any questions. And I just unmuted everybody. It looks like a couple of people are not unmuting. Maybe they might be muted themselves. Is there any question? Anybody have any questions about anything I covered? Would like to see a little bit more information, or maybe go back to a previous slide, or go back into the demo and look at something a little bit more in depth? Any questions whatsoever?
I don't have any questions, Derek.
Thank you, Claudette. Glad to see you on the call today too.
Yep, good to see you,
yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I appreciate everybody's time today, and I believe we'll be announcing our next webinar tomorrow. So we'll get these things on the schedule, and I do want to mention, on our IntelliPoint.net site, we have a special link at the top of our page now. So if you've missed any of our webinars, we actually are publishing them out there now. I'm still bent on Dennis to get that Teams webinar done. We've had a lot of requests to get that Teams webinar completed, so maybe we'll get him to get that finished up for everybody and get that posted out there. But this will be posted, I'd say, by tomorrow. So if you want to review it again, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. So if there's nothing else, everybody have a good day. We'll talk to you guys later.